Mr. Clerk.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newark Municipal Council's pre-meeting. Madam President, let's begin with the agenda. There are no appointments on this agenda, so we can begin. Are there any questions by the council or the reports on the boards for the boards and commissions?
Next item.
Ordinance on first reading. 6FA is the short-term rental. B is the creating the title for short-term rentals. C is the accommodation for property subject to license for the short-term rentals, and D is the taxation, hotel occupancy tax.
Mr. Clerk, a meeting was held last night. Unfortunately, the Corp Council couldn't make it, but I spoke to him prior to the meeting. We have the petitions required, signed by those who live in the Weequahic, historic Weequahic area. In addition to that, there was a major discussion at the meeting itself, and in the absence of Corp Council, we're asking, the community is asking that we defer this. And at some point in time, I do think Councilman Gonzalez is correct. We need to either put it on the table, but as a result of the meeting last night, we do have the information that has been requested.
Madam President?
Yes.
Could I offer a suggestion? I'm not sure where the administration is with this. This has been deferred a number of times, a few times at the request of the council president, but also at the request of the administration. But if it's the intent of this administration to create some regulations around Airbnb, and there are some concerns that have been expressed at different meetings by residents of the Weequahic community, is it possible to perhaps restrict the availability of Airbnb in certain districts, like in our historic districts in the city, which I believe would alleviate some of the concerns that the councilwoman has expressed, but at the same time allow the administration to move forward on setting a policy around Airbnb, because currently it's allowed and there are no regulations with it. And I think what they're trying to do via these different ordinances is to create, registration process and other things that I believe are beneficial to the city. But at some point that needs to happen, right? Unless the city takes a position that it will not allow Airbnb in the city of Newark. And we haven't taken that position. So I really believe that based on the concerns that have been expressed by the community at the Weequahic section, and perhaps some of our residents in Forest Hill or James Street will express some of the same issues, that we should consider approving the regulations and at the same time restricting the availability of Airbnb in our historic districts as a compromise. Just a suggestion.
So the Corp Council met with Airbnb, and what makes this particular establishment, and it was discussed widely by the community. There must have been, maybe 50 people at the meeting last night who are opposed to live every day with this horrible situation. And it did come up. There is another addition that we're probably going to request for these three items, and that if there is a B&B, number one, it should be owner occupied. This is one of those establishments where there is no oversight. The people, they have a code, a little punch code, and that's how they get into the house. There is also, and it was expressed last night, that children live on our street. And these are, many of the residents are concerned about the safety of the children, particularly who live on Hansberry. And while I understand the need to get this done, I think there are a few other ideas that came out of the meeting. We need to have an opportunity to place them before us to discuss it. And so I'm asking my colleagues to defer it one more time. And I promise you I will not ask for another deferral. But there was information that came out, particularly the most salient point is that it is not occupied by the owner. And there are other Airbnbs in the Weequahic section. But number one, you would never know it. Number two, they're owner occupied. And the lack of respect that they have for our community, we're not giving up. We're not. So if we can defer one more time, because we'll then have a chance to also, and anyone else who wants to meet with Airbnb, I'm going to have a meeting with them soon. The Corp Council's not here. Anybody have questions?
Yeah. Madam President,
if you don't live there, you don't experience what we go through every day.
Madam President, if I can go back, if we were to exempt the historic districts, would that alleviate or address the concerns that the residents that you've been meeting with have?
I'm sorry, say the question.
If we restricted Airbnb in our historic districts in the city, would that satisfy the concerns that the residents that you've been meeting with have?
Absolutely. We have supported the North Ward in our discussion because we have information, people.
We honestly, I have not received one complaint from a homeowner or resident in Forest Hill regarding Airbnb. I do know one property that I am concerned about that I believe, it's being advertised and rented, on a pretty much on a rotation basis for Airbnb. So no one lives there, and I believe that it's being rented, the entire month as an Airbnb property. And I do have concerns because I see a lot of vehicles parked there, a lot of different activity, but not one homeowner has reached out to our office concerning it.
The final point that I'd like to make is we have a court date before Judge Grant. It is April the 11th, and this will be the opportunity for the residents of the Weequahic section as a whole, not just Hansberry Avenue, but an opportunity to go to court. And hopefully what comes out of that, the judge's decision will validate what we are so afraid of, that it might happen. I'd rather do anything. I'd rather do something in foresight than in hindsight. I'm sorry.
I was just going to add that we have gotten multiple complaints from the University Heights section about the Airbnb and their problems that they've been having as well. So we do have a lot of issues happening. I know that they took some standards on their end in terms of their board, because they have an association in the Society Hills area specifically to try to restrict Airbnb or put some regulations on it, but they have had many complaints regarding Airbnb in their area as well. Just wanted to add that.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I read this ordinance correctly, is that this here
And
is
regulate
to
it.
tax them, to regulate. We are not doing anything to preclude them from being established. So the one that was established, we don't have anything here that would eliminate that entity as a Airbnb. What we are doing here is taxing the ones that are established. So we will have to revisit the one ordinance creating or allowing the creation of the Airbnbs. This one here is to tax them.
Yeah, and it's also to require them to register with the city of Newark on a
Yep.
yearly basis, to attest to the fact that they're going to adhere to local zoning requirements when they rent out, for Airbnb purposes. Right now, it's operating without any kind of regulation, and I think that's part of the problem. And I believe what they're trying to accomplish with these ordinances is to create, some mechanism where they're regulated and taxed by the city, which isn't happening right now. It's kind of like a free-for-all, right?
Yes.
I guess my final point is that, number one, to address Councilman Gonzalez, that if properly and efficiently and monitored, it can become, and I've had this conversation with the mayor, it can become a revenue stream. But at this point in time, with the taxation, Airbnb, number one, is still in a quandary about the ones that have not registered, who aren't that are not owner occupied, and the effect that it has on the community. They're kind of leaning more on our side in terms of regulation. I don't think the sky would fall or anything terrible would happen if the council would support a deferral for those of us who live there and for those who don't, and in other areas, until we have our court date, which is April the 11th. It's and that's only, 9 days away.
Let's defer them.
Hmm?
Let's defer them.
So hopefully council as a whole to defer until after the court date.
6E is an ordinance which will require the secondhand and transient dealers to use for precious metals and gems to use the electronic database recording.
Yeah, I'm the sponsor.
And I'll second it.
What was it? Oh, sponsor.
F is an ordinance which will correct the terms of office. Ordinance on second reading, final hearing, and second reading, final passage, 6 PSNFA would adopt, is an ordinance which would amend an ordinance adopted on August 7, 2013 to the Third Amendment to the Newark River Public Access and Redevelopment Plan by revising certain requirements related to lots 30, 31, 40, 34, 40, 42, 45, 80, and 82 in Block 447. It's in an area bounded by Mount Pleasant Avenue, Clay Street, and McCarter Highway.
So I'm fine. I'm fine with this.
Councilwoman.
Is Chris here? No. We asked for information regarding this item, a development plan and a timeline that we still haven't gotten. So still waiting on that for that piece. But it's okay to move.
This is final passage.
Huh?
This is final passage.
Yes, it's fine.
B would amend the zoning code. This would establish professional review fees, escrow, and procedures to establish professional review fees, escrow deposits for the review and administration of redevelopment applications made to the City of Newark Central Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, and the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission.
Mr. Clerk, we have not resolved the issue of the selection of two members, and perhaps in executive session, because we're all here today, except for Councilman Amador.
Yeah, we said we would pick the other name out of a hat, right?
No, I said we resolved one. We just didn't resolve the second selection.
So, do we?
And Carlos has his.
Still have my hat.
Carlos
You
has.
still have,
Councilman, if you like, I can I'll bring over the tumbler that we
Yes.
use for the
Yes.
yes.
okay? I'll have that brought to the,
Yes.
for the meeting. C is a 23-year tax abatement to the 98 Frelinghuysen Real Estate Urban Renewal LLC. At the request of the administration, council, we will be deferring action at this time. The public hearing will remain open.
Yes, Councilman James.
I'd like to put on the record that I support this project, even though there are some union concerns as far as not the construction work, but the service union. The Dayton Street area, Frelinghuysen area, has not had any new development in years. This will be a hotel not connected to the airport, more in the community, not one that's on 1 and 9 or any of the major highways. So I strongly suggest we move forward with this, but I will talk to the administration and the union representatives between today and tomorrow. We may lose this project if we do not support it. Thank you.
Madam President,
Councilman Ramos.
I just want to say that I do support, the development project itself. But I do also agree that some time ago, the mayor and the administration had made a commitment that any hotel project that received, any kind of incentive from the city, whether it was a tax abatement or other incentive from the city, would be in a position where they would have to agree to some kind of labor harmony clause, which essentially just guarantees the workers the right to organize if they choose to organize. And I'm not sure, this definitely isn't on the councilman, because this project had been vetted through prior to it getting on the agenda, but somehow that got missed in the process, and it ends up being on the agenda without that requirement being discussed. So I'm not sure where the administration is. Have they had an opportunity to discuss this with the proposed developer? This is on final reading for tomorrow afternoon, and we've had, a little bit of time since the last meeting to hopefully have the administration have a sit-down with the developer related to the labor harmony piece. So I'm not sure if that's happened. You're working on it? Okay.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, Councilman Gonzalez.
It's not related to this project, but it's related to economic development as a whole. We have, the state has a program that is called ERG to help finance these projects. That program is about to expire in June. I don't know what Plan B is in the event that the projects that we have in the pipeline don't have that kind of assistance from the state. And this project may be affected by that, and other projects are going to be affected by that, specifically the ones on Broad Street and the one across the street from Broad Street train station. So I would like to have, if we can, from economic development, a presentation to us as to what is the alternative in the event that were to expire and were not extended. Also, when we were trying to get Amazon here, the city the city was able or willing to give $1 billion in incentive, and the state was willing to give $6 billion in incentive. Perhaps we can have the state give us some of that money for those projects. And maybe that's something that we should, let's say, inquire of the state, because if they were willing to give it to Amazon, why not give it to other people that are going to bring residents to the city of Newark and jobs to the city of Newark?
Good morning, Council. Natasha Rogers, Chief Operating Officer, Interim Deputy Mayor and Director of Economic and Housing Development. So one, I want to give my apologies to Councilwoman McIver for my staff not submitting the timeline. I will follow up with them to ensure like what happened with that. Secondly, to the point about active projects that have ERG in their capital stack, I met with the CEO of Tim Sullivan for the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and through that conversation, for those that have funding committed to their capital stack that was authorized by the authority, irrespective of the expiration of any of those tax incentive programs, that financing is committed. For those that have committed financing, they can take they don't have to be angst-filled. I was also assured that whatever the programs that will substitute those existing programs, those will be in effect at the sunset of those programs on June 30th. What those programs are, we're not sure. So to your request for a presentation, it just won't be an effective presentation, Councilman. We are lobbying with state legislators right now and the Economic Development Authority to work through what those new programs will be. I have also, that was the reason why I requested the meeting with the CEO of EDA, because 75% of all our projects have some sort of state financing to them, and it could be an adverse impact to the city of Newark if the state does not come up with some other program that deals with that type of financing in a way. But the goal of the state is to make sure that those programs are more equitable, and we have to work with them in order to, for them to achieve their goal while we also achieve our goal. I think I answered all the questions or concerns that were.
Thank you very much, and I believe that when you get to let's say, to whatever the other programs are going to be to financing, you can make a presentation to us then.
Yes, thank you.
Councilman James.
I just want to add for the record that, again, this is a difficult project, and it may spur other development in that area. And just for the record, the developer has already expressed that he will walk from this project if he's had to sign the union waiver. So I just want to make that known on the record. This is not an easy project because we're still waiting for the PATH train extension in that area. I think it would spark redevelopment, and we may lose it if we do not vote on it tomorrow.
Respectfully, I just entered into this position, so I don't have the history of this project, but I will just say systematically and programmatically that we cannot react to the fact that if a developer doesn't choose to abide by the written ordinance of the city, we can't react to the idea that they want to pull a project. Like, the law is the law, and I don't know all the facts, but once I get them, we'll get to that point. But I can confidently say the administration is not going to react to developers that don't want to abide by municipal law.
Any other comments?
I just want to add again that this worked its way through the process. It went through the administration to get on the agenda. So again, you just got here, so this is not, any fault of yours, but something happened prior to allow it to get to final vote. It had nothing to do with the developer. If they weren't previously instructed to enter into an agreement or negotiate an agreement, that's not on the developer.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Seven R1A is a temporary emergency appropriation for the New Jersey program grant, which will provide an improved screening rates and health outcomes for colorectal cancer and lung cancer. B is the use of a state contract for the purchase of vans. These are for traffic and signals and the Division of Office Services. C is the purchase of, use of a state contract for the purchase of vans, again, traffic and signals, and the Division of Police.
Madam President,
Yeah, Councilman.
to say something. These vans, the first ones are replacing vans that are 22 years old. I believe we should have a plan in the city to replace these vehicles before. These vehicles at 22 years old are ineffective, cost more in repairs and maintenance than if we were to buy a new vehicle. I don't understand why we have cars that are 22 years still in use. I'm telling you, and the same happens with the firefighters. They have trucks that are older than some of the firefighters working on those trucks. We have to do better. I believe that we have to do better. We have to, if we have to bond to buy those vehicles, to update those vehicles, I believe we have to do it because we cannot, a city of this magnitude cannot be operating with cars that are 25 years old.
I do agree with you, absolutely, but if you recall, there was a significant amount of time when we didn't have the finances.
I know.
So
Nothing on this administration. It's,
Yes.
we have allowed it to happen for a long time.
I'm glad we're correcting it. Thanks for your observation.
But Councilman, they're all classic vehicles.
Well, yeah, we could, we save some money on the plates, QQ plates for them.
701D is a bid contract to provide athletic apparel.
Oh, what kind of athletic apparel are we buying? Is somebody here to speak on this?
Yeah, I had the same question.
Yeah. I would like to know what kind of athletic apparel are we purchasing?
Good afternoon, Council. Naja Davis, Assistant Purchasing Agent. So the apparel would be any team uniforms. I know that Public Works utilizes this contract. Pretty much any department within the city who has uniforms with emblems on them, they all utilize this contract. So,
Even though it says athletic?
yes. So it says athletic, but it includes polos, pretty much anything that these companies provide, including uniforms for our sport teams.
Any other? I have a different kind of
sport
question.
teams?
I'm sorry.
I was saying, what sport teams do we have? What sport teams?
The recreation purchases uniforms, for example. It might be recreation or DPW, I need to check, but swim uniforms and warm-ups for their squads. So,
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
The budget that is being charged here says Department of Recreation, Cultural Affairs, and Senior Services. Doesn't say anything about Public Works or any other department.
well, that was just an example, but so the example that I just gave about the swim uniforms, that stands.
But this one here, this $320,000 is for the Department of Recreation. It's not for any other purchase.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can go back and check
Would
to
you
see
please?
an example of what exactly they purchase.
Yes.
In addition, did this go out for bid?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Madam President.
And the only company we got was from Pennsylvania? I mean, they using another one from
There's
Mount
another one
Pleasant.
from Mount
We
Pleasant.
got two. JNLP is from Newark.
Okay.
Listen,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I overlooked that, okay.
Madam President, I saw Director Council come in. Could you tell us, like, which teams the city directly sponsors that we're buying uniforms for? Because I know a lot of leagues and groups, you know, they don't necessarily operate under the Department of Recreation. You know, a lot of our little leagues operate independently. They have sponsors. Through those sponsorships, they're able to buy uniforms. So which teams is the city buying uniforms for, and who do they play for?
So the athletic apparel, right, is not only equipped just for teams. It's athletic apparel that our recreation department utilizes for programs and activities that we run, from our mayor's basketball tournaments to basketball tournaments that we run over the summer. We have an extreme amount of programs that we run over the summer, as well as some things that we may need for our Pop Warner program, in which the city of Newark does sponsor. And so those athletic apparel things come from the vendor.
But you're not buying uniforms for any
No Little League baseball teams, no.
So Pop Warner, as it currently exists, it's a division of Department of Recreation League, so it's a ministry.
Pop Warner is under the Department of Recreation, Cultural Affairs, and Senior Services.
And you fund 100% of the cost?
We don't fund 100% of the cost. We fund insurance, we fund bus transportation for regional fees. We pay the regional, eastern region, and local fees to participate in there. We've devised a system where each organization is their own association, where now they have presidents and vice presidents, and they help assist in getting helmets and shoulder pads for their organizations. But as it relates to official fees, paying for all of the officials, as well as the cost of the insurance for all the teams, as well as cheerleading as well. So it's just not Pop Warner football, but it's also cheer. We ensure that all of those fees are paid for. But in the area of athletic apparel, it even speaks to, again, most of the activities and events that we have citywide throughout the summer and during our regular recreational year, that we may need to have different athletic apparel.
So they're able to raise money as well through the association?
Yes.
And how much of your department's budget goes to support Pop Warner now?
How much of the budget?
Yeah, how much do you allocate for Pop Warner? Is it like, used to be about 100,000 a year?
Right. It's less than 100,000. So it's less than 100,000.
Yeah, and it's been my position through the chair and the clerk, and I have no issue with the amount of support that we lend to Pop Warner, but for a number of years, we were in a position where we, on a much smaller scale, we were able to support a number of our little leagues, and whether it was baseball and even our youth soccer program, and like 3 years ago that stopped. And as we're about to enter into our budget season again and start going into our hearings, I would ask through your chair and the clerk that we bring that conversation back in terms of how the city can be somewhat supportive of some of our other youth, organized youth programs in the city. I don't think it's fair that we support one and not the others.
Well, just to lend some credence to the Pop Warner perspective, right? And I can hear your concern. But back in 1982, I believe 82, 83, 84, Councilman, who is now Senator Rice at the time, put an ordinance out that allowed for the support of Pop Warner football in the city of Newark to ensure that young people, Pop Warner and cheer, had an opportunity through the city to receive these kind of fundings. Now, as it speaks to other Little League organizations or other organizations throughout the city, I think part of the issue is, again, is trying to capitalize who's going to get it, how to get it. There is a system in place, but then it also speaks to funding and budget and about, doing what is fiduciary sound for the city. And so I speak volumes to all of youth sports because I'm a youth sport advocate and understand the importance of it, but also understand that we want to be very gentle with how we walk and begin to ensure that we one, support in other ways just outside of financial support. I mean, we rent out facilities. We provide fields. If you look at the light bills, that's a lot of support, right?
They pay permit fees, though, when they
well, yeah, they pay permit fees, but those permit fees are cost prohibitive. But also, if you look at what we do in terms of in-kind services, right? We pay the lighting bills for all of these organizations to stay on the fields as long as they're out there. Most of them are out there at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And those bills are exhaustive as well through Musco to have the lights running, and then other things that we're doing. But we always are in position to want to be able to serve, but we just have to be mindful of how we do it and which capacity that we do it in. So thank you.
Yeah, Madam President, I
anyway.
just want to reiterate that, again, I'm not talking about, cutting anything related to Pop Warner, but if we can find $100,000 a year in the Department of Recreation's budget to subsidize our Pop Warner program, which I think is important and vital. In the past, we've given grants as low as $2,500 and $2,000 to about 13 Little Leagues around the city. And to find issue with that, I think is problematic. I believe as a council, as a clerk and administration, we have to figure out a way to be a little more helpful because we have thousands of kids that participate in Little League baseball and soccer in this city, and they deserve, the same support from the city as other youth programs do.
Councilwoman McIver.
So is it possible that we can get a list of the, you said you designate about 100,000 for Pop Warner?
Less than that.
Okay, can we get a list of what that is, which Pop Warner teams? Because we get a lot of requests.
It's not the teams. The teams have their own associations, right? And so what we're doing is we're paying the cost of insurance. We're paying the cost for transportation when the teams go to regional or state playoffs. We pay for the official fees for every Pop Warner game and playoffs. Those are the things that we carry. The teams are responsible for helmets, shoulder pads, and uniforms, which they go out, they fundraise, they do a lot of other very innovative things to help out and lend assistance. And it's a shared kind of service, which involves, the totality of help of everybody involved. So the city's doing their part, and we're doing the associations are doing their part. Also, we work with Newark Public Schools to provide the field and the space that they can be able to have their games and participate in their games.
Got it. So earlier you had mentioned about the uniforms, because that's what sparked this conversation regarding this item, and you said that you guys supply uniforms. So you don't supply uniforms. This contract right now that we're speaking on, 7R1D, you don't do anything for Pop Warner through this?
Okay. Right, no, nothing.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Any other comments? Councilman Gonzalez.
If I may ask that you detail for us in writing the expenses that are incurred on behalf of Pop Warner? Let's say you said that you pay for transportation. So
it's wonderful how this conversation turned to a Pop Warner conversation.
Give me last year expenditures. No, it's that, let's say you're questioning the help to other institutions. I want to know what is spent on Pop Warner. I believe it's fair that at one point in time we had to let go of 162 police officers, but we funded Pop Warner. So I believe that
you actually funded recreation, the Department of Recreation, Cultural Affairs, and Senior Services.
And then you funded Pop Warner. So I believe that it's important that we get a detail of what is it that is spent on behalf of Pop Warner. I believe at one point in time when we had someone I believe it was in the clerk's office that spent $80,000, we used to give him $80,000 for it. So I would like to know what is it that we're getting, that we're giving to Pop Warner.
So I just stated it to Councilwoman McIver. I'll put it in writing, but I also don't want you to forget.
Excuse me.
Just put it in writing.
Excuse me, just put it in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Director, while you're here,
Councilwoman?
yeah, while you're here, this isn't about this item, but I want to discuss real quickly regarding senior services, as well as some of the activities happening through recreation. Is it possible if we can get on a regular, consistent basis information regarding the programs happening through senior service and recreation? At some point, I did used to get them on a monthly basis of the things happening. That stopped, and so sometimes when I see things happening, it's either via social media or somebody is kind enough to give me a flyer. I'm big on supporting the things happening here in our city, and people don't know about them. That's why we're trying to promote our rec centers and the things happening. If we don't get the information, I think that's a problem. So if we could just coordinate something on a regular basis that the council can get the information, then we could push it out to our constituents. That would be really helpful if we can get that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Information is always available.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Seminar 1E is a bid contract to provide mowing services and park maintenance.
This is very interesting, that we have a company from Wall to do mowing of the parks. Again, it's based on bids, but it's a defies logic.
It does.
Oh, for the fields.
Defies logic that someone from Wall
New
do
Jersey.
it cheaper than someone from Newark.
Please explain.
But if you look at the document, you see how many times that we put it out, and we try to exhaust ourselves and try to get somebody from Newark to be able to get this done. I'm just excited that we got an opportunity to help keep some of our parks clean.
No, I believe some of the reason is what I always say, that we don't pay people on time. People don't want to do business with the city of Newark. And we have a lot of examples of that. Let's say people have to wait 90, 120 days to be paid, so they are reluctant to do business with the city. And I don't blame them. We have to improve that so that we can bring more people from the city of Newark to do business with the city.
So I think that I'm going to go.
Councilwoman.
I'm going to go with the opposite. I think that just how we take some of the initiatives through NECD regarding local contractors and things like that, BA and our CEO, we need to put something in place that we can go out and try to attract people within the community who can possibly get these bids. And I'm not speaking directly to the director. I'm speaking as far as for the administration. We put a lot of effort into building local businesses and local contractors and things like that. We need to do the same for our city-based contracts. I mean, that makes logical sense. I mean, it's our contracts, and we have the opportunity to build that and build people in the community to get the contracts the same way that NECD does for their local contractors. I think we should try to put something together to try to build people in the community to get these contracts, you know, hosting a seminar or something to get people, you know, ready to get these contracts, because that's basically the problem. In many cases, you get a lot of complaints regarding people not getting picked or not winning the bid, and then you find out they had a bad paperwork or whatever the case might be, that we can be providing assistance for, for our local business owners in the city. So I'm not for you, Director, that's just for administration in general.
I know. I'm part of the administration in general.
But no, I mean, you know.
And the administration in general is working hard at that, right? We first came in here, I think the procurement was very low. It was about 40 to 50% in Newark-based procurement. And we're just continuing to work very hard, right? I mean, the mayor sends the message all of the time. It's being related through the BA and the COO about how we need to drive and make sure that we're getting, you know, local vendors in here to do the work of our city. And we fight, you know, very vigorously to ensure that these things are happening, and we're going to continue to do it because we know that our folks can provide these services, and if we have to continue to find ways and mechanisms to train and provide resources and information and opportunity, we're going to continue to do that so that our procurement information can keep rising. And then when we do it, we just need your support behind it, right?
Pay them on time.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we just got to do a little better, so that's my point, you know.
Director, a quick question. What are some of the requirements of a vendor who submits a bid for a project like this? What are some of the requirements?
Well, I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
So the requirement documents, sorry,
I beg your
Naja
pardon?
Davis, Assistant Purchasing Agent. The required documents are
No, not documents. What are the requirements in terms of equipment, you know,
as long as they can
employees?
fulfill the specifications required as to what they would like. For example, if they want T-shirts, I imagine they would need a T-shirt press, but it's... Oh,
Let me cut to the chase. My question, I didn't mean for it to be in a roundabout question. I agree with Councilman Gonzalez. When I read the resolution, I went, wow, New Jersey. So my question is, you mean that we can't find somebody in Hillside, in Maplewood, South Orange, who can do this kind of, provide this kind of service. I just find it unbelievable that we can't find anyone closer than Wall.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, we put out the bid 3 times, and we have advertised to multiple companies in the area. It just, it depends on who bids on it. And I believe this, yes, and I believe this particular bid had a bid bond, so that might have been a barrier.
Well, any other comments?
Madam President?
Yes.
And this question is more for Pat. So, like Elwood Park, that's not included in the list. Is that done by a separate entity or a different contract or by city employees?
No, when we really sat down and look at it, Elwood Park, I just believe that the councilman could do a good job of cleaning it up on his own.
Yeah.
So I didn't, no. What we really did was, we wanted to help the Department of Public Works and the Parks and Grounds, and we looked at, in terms of acreage, what were the largest acreages in terms of parks
I
that we
understand,
can
but
be able to.
my question is, who takes care of Elwood Park?
Parks and Grounds.
Okay, and they need to do it on a regular schedule,
Okay.
because I constantly have to call, and I want to thank Khalif, whenever there are issues. I don't understand how some of these areas are just not on a regular schedule.
Correct.
You know, Heller Parkway mediums, I always have to call. The grass is like 7 feet high. Same thing in Elwood Park, it's full of garbage. And those areas have to be on a regular schedule, especially now in the spring through the summer, because it's not fair to the residents that they're not getting the services that they pay taxes for.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because this is one of the reasons why we wanted to move in this direction, so that we can begin to have the Parks and Grounds Department lend a more focused approach to some of the smaller parks, and we can take some of these bigger parks off of their radar, and it allows them more time to spend times in our smaller facilities. So I know Director Thomas is working on that and has a plan to make
Those
sure
are going to
all
be
that
handled
happens.
in-house.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just deal with Mr. Thomas. It's worked well so far on our parks.
And you and Councilman Quintana can take care of Elwood Park.
You could take part of your budget and buy a few more lawnmowers for your staff, all right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I do want to reiterate what
Director.
Councilman Ramos said, though, regarding the regular schedule, because we do need a regular schedule of cleaning the parks in the areas. I mean, I understand the directors do help us, Director Thomas, every time we reach out, but we need a regular schedule, because to continue to keep reaching out every time I'm riding by parks, that's not really helping. Like, there should just be a regular schedule of cleaning the parks, especially with the weather being warm. So, you know, it's nice. We have a very responsive director, but we need a regular schedule.
Good morning, Khalif Thomas, Department of Public Works Director. Not an issue. That's one of the areas that we changing. Is under different leadership this coming season, so you'll see a big difference in those parks. If y'all want me to provide y'all with a schedule, we'll do that by Friday.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
That'll be great. Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Madam
I'm sorry,
President,
Councilman.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the director. I just sent an email yesterday morning about some potholes on a particular street as a result of PSENG's work, and this morning they were there, and they were fixing them. So on behalf of the community, thank you.
Thank you.
One more time.
Thank you.
Oh, all right.
All
Since we're
right.
talking about potholes, could we get to Bergen Street too, Director? Yeah. Hopefully, we're gonna, get to that too. Swerving on the side.
Khalif, he's trying to make you move to the east. Stay in the south.
Absolutely. Mr. Clerk?
7R2A is a second amendment to the redevelopment agreement for the Old Third Ward Redevelopment LLC. 7R3A is a designation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we go
sorry.
back? 7R2A. I'm gonna ask for that to be deferred. 7R2A, yes, it's our fourth time deferring. I understand that I'm going to have some resolution on this item soon by the next council meeting, so I apologize to my council colleagues. We just want to make sure we get everything right regarding what has been promised to us from our developer friends on this particular project that's tied to this agenda item, so thank you.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Do I have a second for this deferral?
I'm sorry?
We have a second. 3A is the designation of a bus stop. This is deleting a bus stop on St. Francis Street.
Councilman?
Can somebody explain to me why?
You didn't put this in?
With all the development coming to around that area, are we removing a bus stop?
They're moving it to another corner, I believe.
To another corner.
Me too.
I thought you asked.
I ask for a lot of things that are not part of the record. And this is not one of them, I guarantee you.
I think Councilman Ramos asked for it.
Next item.
Madam President, the letter that's attached says the city of Newark has requested the elimination of the existing bus stop.
Right.
And this is addressed to Mr.
Not
Dexter Cobbs
relocating
from
to
engineering.
another place. It's,
Yeah.
it's removing it.
No, what I'm saying is someone requested this, so I'm not sure, probably from Department of Engineering, but there isn't anything attached regarding this.
Mr. Clerk?
7R3B is the designation of a bus stop on Nicholas Street.
Here we go again.
The homeowners,
Moved it.
it says here, due to a homeowner's driveway. The bus stop cannot be
Any comments?
an existing bus stop.
Mr. Clerk, next item.
7R4A is the approval of a sale of city-secured bonds. This is $20 million.
So we're not going to vote on the two bus stops.
Oh, yes. I didn't hear,
I hope so.
yes. Mr. Clerk, we just need to have a response to the councilman's question. WHY. I think I have an idea about the second one, though, because if
Can you share your idea? Because I don't have one.
Next item, Mr. Clerk, because I want to tell a bad joke, a silly joke, and we're here for business.
The next group of resolutions through 7R5R on page 23 are all contracts with subrecipients to provide HIV/AIDS-related health and supportive services to the Newark-eligible metropolitan area. 5A is the Catholic Family and Community Services Hope House. 5B is the Community Health Law Project. 5C is Cura. 5D is the Hyacinth AIDS Foundation. 5E is the Isaiah House. 5F is the St. James Social Services Corporation. 5G is the Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey Infectious Disease Practice. 5H is the Urban Renewal Corporation. 5I is the St. Michael's Clinic, Inc., the Peter Ho Memorial Clinic. 5J is the Trinitas Regional Medical Center Early Intervention Program. And 5K is the United Way of Greater Union County. 5L is the New Jersey AIDS Alliance doing business as the New Jersey Community Research Initiative. 5M is the Atlantic Health Systems, Inc., Morristown Medical Center. 5N is the Neighborhood Health Services Corporation. 5O is the Team Management 2000, Inc. 5P is the Newark Community Health Centers, Inc. 5Q is the Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Newark, St. Bridget's AIDS Support Network. And 5R is the AIDS Consortium, Inc., doing business as the Broadway House for Continuing Care. 7R5A is an application and acceptance of grant funds to extend the access to integrated,
Next item.
5S is the application and acceptance of grant funds to extend access to integrated substance and use disorders. 8A is a constable appointment. 8B is support for the annual Portuguese Day Parade. 8C are various sorrow and regret resolutions. 8D are various recognizing and commending resolutions. 709A is the acceptance of a donation, 300 operating gratitude care pouches. 5B is the exception to public bidding for support for the maintenance of a proprietary software. 5C is a contract with subrecipient to partner with the Rutgers University in order to develop an evidence-based strategy that leverages crime analysis and technology with the goal of improving public safety in the high crime area. 7R12A is a professional service contract. This is the First Amendment to the Professional Engineering Services Contract on an as-needed basis. This is CME Associates. 12B is also an amendment to the professional services contract. This is Civil Dynamics, a division of GCA. 12C is also an amendment to the professional services contract on an as-need basis. This is Mott McDonald LLC. B is also an amendment to the engineering contract. This is HDR Engineering, Inc. On communications, 8A is an ordinance granting a 15-year tax abatement to 869 Broad Urban Renewal for a project to convert an existing 4-story retail and office building into a residential and retail development consisting of 37 market rate residential rental units, 11,740 square feet of ground floor retail. This is 889 square foot of lobby located at 869-873 Broad Street.
I'm going to sponsor.
Councilwoman.
B is an ordinance adopting the Ferries and Main redevelopment plan in an effort to alleviate blight by encouraging the redevelopment of formerly industrial parcels, 28-32 Main Street, 339-347 Ferry Street, and 331-337 Ferry Street.
Councilman?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
On pending business, 9A is the ordinance which would define the definition and adopt the land use regulations pertaining to the medical marijuana treatment centers. As you can see, we have 8 speakers for tomorrow's hearing of citizens. And there are 3 potential added starters. One is the exception to public bidding. This is for the Granicus contract. This is the Legistar system, which may not make it as an added starter. It will probably be on the special for next Tuesday. The other is a hold harmless indemnification for community meeting. And the final is a recognizing and commending resolution.
Mr. Clerk, before we close, if we could have a moment of silence in honor of the late, great Mayor Kenneth Allen Gibson.
Madam President, if we could also, the mayor and also Chief O'Reilly, who...
Oh, yes, yes. For those who don't know, Chief O'Reilly of our department, who was a long-serving police director, also passed. I heard that last night. So if we could have just a moment of silence to honor the service they rendered to this city. Amen.
Madam President?
Yes, Councilman.
Just like to say some of the details regarding Honorable Mayor Gibson. His body will lie in state here on Thursday from 12 to 6 p.m., followed by a funeral service from 7 p.m. at Symphony Hall. So from 12 to 6 here in City Hall, he can be viewed, and then the funeral service will take place at 7 p.m. at Symphony Hall on Thursday. God bless his family.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think that if you look around this chamber and you see the pictures of folks who have been here before us or are here now, and in view of the importance that Ken Gibson was to this city, I think it's appropriate that we have his portrait in this chamber together with these folks.
Let me just,
I make a motion that we do that.
as a historical aspect of it, that's a good suggestion, but these chambers, the pictures that you see before these chambers were members of the governing body, meaning the city council. But we can find a section in here where we could highlight some of the mayors who have served this great city. I know Mayor James was a member of council, that's why his photo's here. The other mayors, and we could look and explore that idea too, but,
Go ahead.
and I think, that's a good suggestion for the future too, to have started with Mayor Kenneth Allen Gibson. But again, Madam President, I got a letter yesterday, you did too, from the mayor, the Honorable Mayor Rasbaraka, requesting that Broad Street renamed the Kenneth Allen Gibson Boulevard. And you and I received that letter, and you and I, Mr. Clerk, Council President and I would like to prepare a resolution in support as two sponsors of us sponsoring it together. Mayor Kenneth Allen Gibson is the reason why some folks are sitting here today. As some people forget where they come from, and two people get too big when they get where they get to. And Mayor Kenneth Allen Gibson there would have been no Sharp James if it had not been for Ken Gibson. There would have been no Black and Puerto Rican Convention if it had not been for Amiri Baraka and Kenneth Allen Gibson, who were the founders of the Black and Puerto Rican Convention. Too often youngsters around here forget the history of this town and who was here. They just thought they landed here, but it's not so. And these are folks who have paved the way for us. And Mayor Kenneth Allen Gibson did pave the way for a lot of folks. And I served for 16-some years as mayor of this city. And that is commendable. So to request this request from the mayor, requesting that Broad Street renamed the Kenneth Allen Gibson, I would like to give this letter to you, Mr. Clerk, for the record.
Yes.
If you have one. So I'd like to be noted, and that tomorrow, that there be a resolution added to the agenda regarding the renaming of Mayor Kenneth Allen Gibson Boulevard.
Let me change my motion a little bit. In view of the fact that all these portraits are from folks who have served in this council, what I suggest is that we find a place together with the administration where his portrait can be on. For example, the rotunda is a proper place for his portrait to be placed, because it's important that people understand that the history of the city is connected to Ken Gibson immensely.
Mr. Clerk, I also have something that I don't mean. Yes. I received my first award from Kenneth Allen Gibson in 1981. I never had a clue that I would run for office, but he He was such an encourager. And his sphere of influence was greater than this building. And so, council as a whole, a letter to the Board of Education, to our superintendent, that at some point in the future, we identify a school to be named after him in memory of his great work.
City engineer. Yep. Very good. Yes, I'll second that.
Is there a second? Oh, yes, I forgot that.
We will prepare these two as pre-printed motions for tomorrow's meeting.
Is Chris here? Did I see? Mr. Watson, I understand you have a presentation. We're going to make it a public presentation. You spoke to the councilman, and I shared with him that this is information, public information, unless there's something legal, and he said there was none.
Good, Bobby.
Madam President, if I may, before.
Yes, go ahead.
I just received this report here from Samuel Klein about internal controls dated December 31st, 2017, that we got on March 27, 2019. We are a year behind. I suggest that all of us read carefully this report, because there are some, I believe, substantial deficiencies highlighted in this report that I believe we should be discussing in view of the fact that we are proposing salary increases for some of the directors. If I read this, I wouldn't suggest a salary increase for the director of the department, and that's something that we all should take into account. That if we have deficiencies that go back to the year 2000 to the year 2019, 2017, I think it is, or 1998. So we have differences that go back to 1998 up to 2017 that haven't been reconciled. So I believe that it's important that we read this, and that eventually we will have to write a letter indicating what action has been taken to correct these deficiencies. So it seems that no action has been taken to correct the deficiencies mentioned in
So
previous
where did you get that document?
This report was given to all of us.
Council.
This report was given to all of us by the clerk. And I believe it's imperative that we spend some time reading it and perhaps even discussing it as a group, because there are some, I believe, substantial deficiencies that need to be corrected and addressed.
Thank you. We are going to postpone the presentation.
Good, Council President, Eric Pennington, Business Administrator. Just want to, in response to Councilman Gonzalez's comment, I have not seen this report yet. I just was brought to my attention today by Councilman Gonzalez. I will look at it and discuss it with the Director of Finance.
And that was delivered to you, Councilman? Huh? That was given to all the council members?
Yes, it was given to all of us. I just happened to have been an auditor, so I pay a lot of attention to these kind of reports. So I read it.
Mr. Clerk.
We are now in the public speaking portion of this meeting. This is a 30-minute period in which speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak. When you step to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. You'll see a small timing device on the podium in front of you, which will begin counting down your time when you begin speaking. When you reach the 2-minute mark, the yellow light will illuminate, indicating that you have 1 minute remaining for a summation. When you reach your 3rd minute, the red light will illuminate, and there will be an audible sound. Please look forward, speak into the microphone. We are recording these proceedings, and if you turn away, we may miss part of your statement. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak at this time?
No one appearing, Mr. Clerk.
No one appearing? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
We'll
thank
see
you,
you tomorrow
gentlemen
afternoon.
and lady.
Adios.
Yes.
Adios. Ciao. Bello.